I'm Rich Howells. I'm the founder and editor of NEPA Scene.
I'm John Popko. I work for Time Shamrock Communications in radio with Rock 107, Alt 92.1, ESPN Radio, and our outdoor division and digital services.
I'm Brittany Boot, and I'm the owner of Boot Photography Studio.
And we're here with Gerard Durling, who is our producer here at Cole Creative, so we may be a little bit biased tonight. He's also the co-founder of Powerbomb TV and the organizer of Break the Barrier 2017, which is an indie wrestling festival that's coming to Old Forge. It's a brand new event. It's going to be pretty cool, so we're going to talk about wrestling in general, and then we're going to get into the festival itself and everything and what's in store for that. And the live streaming service, Powerbomb TV. Then later on in the night, we're going to talk about the Uncle Murda controversy, and I put that in quotes because it seems to only be a controversy after a lot of other media started talking about it. So we're going to get your take on that. So if you have an opinion on that, if you want to read the story on our Facebook page from WNEP and then react to that, or just tell us in the comments section, and we'll get to those later in the night, and we'll kind of give our own reactions. But let's start with Gerard here.
I'm actually like in the middle of like watching this, like this is completely different.
Yes, this is very weird.
And now I'm just checking to make sure the sound's fine.
Do we have sound?
That's what I'm just making sure
Are
we're
we good to go?
You
I
could
think
be
we have
one
sound.
of the many people who just turn it on while we're doing it. And it's very meta.
I debated it, but I'm trying to get an answer from somebody else, so we don't have to do that. But
Yeah.
I don't know if somebody's listening and wants to say in the comments that we have sound.
Yes,
that'd be a
if
good
you think
way
it
to
sounds
start.
okay and you can hear us fine, let us know. Otherwise, he'll have to run out. And
Oh my God, sounds fine.
Sounds good.
Good. All right. So let's start at the beginning. You seem to be a lifelong wrestling fan. Am I correct in saying that?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. When did it start for you?
I was a kid. I think I live in the generation that grew up in wrestling. In the 90s when it was like super popular, the Attitude Era, so to speak. Like things were not as PC as they are now with television and opinions, and I'm sure we'll get into that at some later point in time. And it was just fun. I think that a lot of people my age grew out of it, as probably you guys did at some point. I don't know if Rich, you even got into wrestling at any point in your life, but
a little bit.
Yeah.
I was into it. I guess I'm dating myself as a little bit older, but I was into it, in the Hulk Hogan era, Andre the Giant era, that kind of thing. And I had those giant, because I was a big action figure guy. I had the giant action
the
figures.
LGNs, the rubber ones.
They were pure. You could kill somebody with one of these things.
Yeah.
They were big rubber things with these giant metal insides, and you could smash something. I remember it was the first, because I was usually very careful with my toys, and just body slamming the guy once into that flimsy ring that they gave you put a hole right in it right away. But you could literally kill somebody with those.
Oh yeah,
things. So
they were really hard rubber.
Yeah. And I remember a lot of my friends being into it during the Attitude Era, during the '90s and stuff like that. But I would say out of it by that point.
Yeah, it was right up there with South Park in that time period where everybody was like really into that. How far can they push it on television without it being
right,
taken off? So I think that had a lot to do with why kids that age were into wrestling, and then they realized, well, what am I actually watching here? And then it started, like, people started fading out out of it. I just kind of continued watching it, but I started getting into, like, not just WWE, WCW at the time, but like I was starting to get into more of like the grunge scene of wrestling, I guess what would be called. Like ECW kind of started becoming a thing in the mid '90s.
Yeah.
And being a kid that age, I wasn't supposed to watch it, because it was on at like 2 a.m. on Madison Square Garden's television channel, and it was just known for being way past what WWE was doing. And like really hardcore, like blood and guts type of stuff.
Yeah,
very edgy content.
They had like thumbtacks, and they were
right,
hitting
fire.
each other with like
Yeah, they were doing crazy stuff. So like when that became a thing, the subculture of wrestling fans started to flock to the internet and started getting together and knowing one another there, and that's kind of where, you know, I just started getting way further and further down that rabbit hole into pro wrestling, and started appreciating, like, you know, the underground wrestling, so to speak, of what it is. So, and then, you know, I decided I wanted to be a pro wrestler, so I went
You go
and
to
did
school
that.
for that, don't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, you could, you know, most people do, like, that are actually pretty decent at wrestling. I went to school for Chikara, which is based in Philadelphia, and I was trained by a guy who most people watching this wouldn't be familiar with, probably, locally. He's Mike Quackenbush, but an incredible trainer. Cesaro, who is currently in the WWE, is one of my trainers, and Cassius Ohno, who is currently in WWE NXT, was also one of my trainers. So very cool time for me personally, watching wrestling, seeing, like, my trainers and my friends on television. Yeah, wrestling school. Yeah, instead of real school, I went to wrestling school.
Can you take us through, like, some of that training that you experienced?
Yeah. So a lot of people, you know, everybody has different opinions of what wrestling is. Like, some people think it's funny. Some people, like, find it entertaining. Some people, like, treat it like it's a sport, you know. Some people, yeah, it's a theater, it's drama. And some people are just flat out, it's fake, I want nothing to do with it. Santa Claus isn't real, this isn't real, this is bullshit.
Santa Claus
Nope,
isn't
you
real.
can't in any way convince me, you know, that wrestling is anything I'd be interested in, because it's fake, and I can't let somebody tell me otherwise. You know, it's like they're so closed-minded to it as a art form or theater or sport, and not really a sport, but it's, you know, it takes athleticism to do it. My first day of wrestling training, I broke my wrist performing an up and over in the ring. So I would say that wrestling is very harder hitting than people believe it is. You know, I'm not going to, and we're not going through any tables or anything like that.
Oh,
but, like,
I'm a liar. Come on.
But, you know, like, getting hit in the chest is real. Like, there's no faking hitting somebody in the chest and hearing them get smacked in the chest. Like, that's not me clapping my hands. Like, my one hand's here, and I'm doing this, you know? And it hurts. There's no way to fake that, you know? And I think there's a lot of wrestling, pro wrestlers in general are interesting human beings for allowing themselves to have that happen to them. Like, I have friends that I try to explain it to as, like, you just stay right there and let me chop you in the chest 3 times. They're like, there's no way I'd let you do that. I'd punch you in the face. It's like, well, yeah, like, but a wrestler will take those 3 hits and not react other than to sell it, to, like, make you believe what's happening in the ring, because reality is it's really happening. It really hurts. And they're disciplined enough to not react by wanting to fight you in that very moment, you know? They know they'll get their moment probably in that match where they get to give you a sting back or something like that, but too often people just, like, they've already dismissed it as fake and don't realize, like, there's some magic to what people are doing in the ring, and sometimes it's actually real, because like, we have to be creative and come up with new ways to make you suspend your disbelief, you know? Like, the days of stomping your foot and, you know, throwing a jab or over, it's not working, but people have come up with new ways to suspend your disbelief, to make you believe in what they're doing, and sometimes they take it to the point of just, like, I'm just going to legitimately hit you in the face, and, you know, that happens now. It's crazy. Then, like, people that bleed and stuff like that, that's all real. Like, it's not like they're blood capsules or anything like that, you know?
Right.
So
yeah, a lot of them would carry, like, a razor blade or something, and, you know, cut themselves, or you know, when they got hit or whatever. So when they pull away, there really is blood there.
Sir,
you know?
I'm not saying that's a thing. I'm not going to, you know, openly say that or anything like. But I will say that, think about somebody doing that to themselves.
Right.
You know, like, just take wrestling out of it and say. I had somebody here earlier was talking about a specific incident that happened, like, at a local venue, that, like, a guy showed up at the show and put a blade to his forehead and started cutting his head to make himself bleed at the show, and, like, everybody looks at him like, you're crazy, like, something's wrong with you, right? But when you put it in wrestling, it's like, it's normal, you know, it's just a normal thing that happens in wrestling. I don't know, they come up with a way to CGI the blood or something. I don't really know what people think what happens, you know.
Right.
But yeah, it's brutal, some of the stuff that, like, these performers put themselves through to make you believe in what they're doing. And that's kind of part of what now interests me the most, is like being somebody that was a pro wrestler, watching a product and saying like, wow, that looked so good. I can't see flaws in that match as far as I believe what they did. Like, what they did was a great story. They told it great in the ring, and like they gave me a believable match that, you know, I can walk away from and say that was entertaining still to me at 31. You know.
What kinds of characters have you done on stage? Did you have a specific persona or something that you tried to get across when you were wrestling?
I went through different phases as a wrestler. I was a masked character that like was awful, and I think that ultimately benefited me in the long run. As I was in a match where I lost my mask. Like, it was like a puesta, which is a bid match. So the guy I faced was Cassius Ono. He bit his hair, so if he lost the match, he had to shave his head. But if I lost a match, I had to take my mask off. I lost the match. But fortunately at that time, like, I was growing my hair out. You know, like I had hair like this at the time, but then I grew it out. It was like real long. I had it chemically straightened to like look like I looked like I was in like an emo or heavy metal band at that time.
Yeah.
With the long hair, I had eyeliner. I just fit the part of like the typical MySpace photo at the time. And at that time, I was Vin Gerard, and it was like this dastardly jerk character that, you know, just did dirty things to people in the ring. Like, I'd fish hook people, or rake their eyes, or pull their hair, or you know, taunt them in negative ways. You know, so I did those two characters, and that's pretty much it. I did like some smaller characters here and there when it was necessary for an additional performer on shows, so like they'd put a mask on me. But other than that, like, those two were the main ones I did.
Is there anything that stuck out to you in terms of when you watched some of these, you know, the independent wrestling as opposed to the national wrestling that people are more familiar with, or the televised wrestling? What is it that you think stood out or impressed you about what they were doing as opposed to maybe what you'd see on TV?
I think that like similar to like in music scenes, like when you see somebody make it and they're on this like larger scale platform, it's a totally different environment than it is to be at like an event in a bar, or at like smaller venues that only seat 1,000 people or have a capacity for that amount. It's like more intimate, and it feels like you're a part of it way more than it is on television. I think that is more interesting to me, and it's also like you're watching people perform without restriction. So like you have like the product on WWE's television where their whole matches are pretty much, they know what's happening when they go into the ring, and it's because they have to be that way. They're publicly traded on the stock market. They have investors. They have all these things that they have to worry about. So they're formatted pretty specific. So when you see like independent wrestling shows, these guys are going off the cuff and doing things that are next level. Like WWE's product now and their NXT product is completely based off of what they ripped from independent wrestling. They watched for 10 years what independent wrestling was doing and said, this looks like we can use it, this looks like we can do it. And then in one foul swoop in the last year and a half, they took almost all of the big independent wrestling names and stuck them in NXT, and now all these WWE fans are now flocking to NXT saying, this is what you need to watch. If you're like if you like wrestling, this is the product, you know?
Right.
But it's been the product on the independent wrestling scene for the last 10 years. It's just now you can't fight the WWE. They're multi-billion-dollar worldwide company.
Right.
They know what they're doing. And what they just did was they took all the top names in indie wrestling and stuck them in the internet-based subscription model. And now all these indie fans that, you know, complained for years about WWE not watching what they're doing or whatever, they've been watching. And now they just made you pay $9.99 a month to watch their brands that you've been complaining that you weren't getting. So it's kind of interesting, you know.
So there's no like WWE on TV anymore?
WWE's on TV still. It's on USA Network. They do Mondays and Tuesdays. But they also have a network, an internet subscription model that they have other shows on top of that. I guess I should probably close that door if there's a vacuum out there.
Somebody's got to clean this place up. But so it's interesting because I mean you see that all the time. I think in any entertainment business, you see that in music and everything too. It's like, okay, this is popular with the kids now, so we need to hire somebody to do that exact same thing, or make that sound and get it out there to the masses.
Right. Don't get me wrong. I really am. It's amazing seeing these people get these big time contracts. There's no one that can compete with them on that level,
Sure.
So it's great to see these people can do this for a living and get paid to do it, and perform the same way essentially that they're performing when they were independent wrestlers. But it also stinks, there's not an alternative that can hold up to that level that the WWE is, or for that matter, just having the opportunity to have a job outside of WWE and professional wrestling in the United States is incredibly challenging. There's a couple people that do it, like you won't know these names, but the Young Bucks. Kenny Omega is in Japan. Ricochet does it. Like all these guys, Adam Cole up until now, who probably has gone to the WWE, but these guys, that's their job. They're wrestlers for a living, and they're doing it on an independent level, which is so challenging. But they've come up with ways to do it and sell themselves and market themselves, and it's pretty incredible to see some people doing that. But there needs to be more of that. There needs to be those opportunities available to them.
Outside of like the independent stuff, like when you get into the WWE, how much of it do they dictate to you? Like, well, you're going to be this character. This is going to be who you are. You're gonna have your hair this way. You're gonna wear this outfit, or like, do they come in with that?
I think it depends on the performer. I'm personally I've never been in the WWE, so I could speak off of dirt sheet rumors or internet stuff, But I think that you can kind of see it just if like you're an independent wrestling fan and you are familiar with a guy like Samoa Joe, for example, who was in the independents, came to the WWE, and he kept the name Samoa Joe. Whereas you'll have a guy like, I'm trying to come up with somebody other than El Generico, but I'll say it all right, Kevin Steen, for example. He was in the independents as Kevin Steen. When he went to the WWE, he became Kevin Owens. Was that a move that was more so to sell T-shirts that said KO on them? Maybe,
Right.
You could probably tell from the 15 different shirts that he has that say KO on them that are selling like crazy numbers at WWE shows, So there's like stuff like that where they might manipulate characters around or completely change them entirely, But it's really dependent on the performer and what their agenda is with the performer,
If you like went from the level you're at to the WWE and you were told like your character is bogus, like you're this now, would you do it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Sell out, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Unless I was like going to be like some sort of like, I don't know, like a princess or some character on, I'd probably still do it, but I wouldn't be thrilled about it,
But you're getting paid.
Yeah, so it's kind of nice. By the way, I was told the sound is fine just now. Thanks, Paul.
It's funny how McMahon plays this evil guy on the thing, but a lot of people see him that way in real life too. It's like he almost plays up that aspect of himself.
Right. I think most wrestlers, their character is a direct extension of something else inside of them that they just have there. Like me in particular, like I was very shy. I was straight edge until I was 22. Around that same time is when I changed to this character with long hair and whatnot. And I also started drinking at that time and like became this miserable human being. After I walked away from wrestling in 2012, I was like, I needed to like reset myself, my personality. Like it was like affecting me a little bit too much that I became this thing that.
Right.
It's kind of like having a split personality in a way and like tapping into that too much sometimes, but like people do that because it's like an escape from their own reality. Like maybe your real job is that I'm not saying this is a bad job, this is my dream job as a child.
Right.
You're a garbage man, right? I really want to be.
Mine was too.
Yeah,
dude.
I
mine
love
was
seeing
too.
that guy.
I don't want to get off topic here. We'll get back to that, but
Yeah.
mine was too.
Yeah. So maybe you're a garbage man in real life, you like that job or not. I mean, you probably get paid really, really well to do the garbage, but
No shame in that.
No, there's none. But, you know, maybe you have something personal wrong in your life, you know, like maybe, you know, you lost your house or you lost your job or something, but you have this other outlet to say everything's all right because tonight I'm going to go and perform in front of 50 people or 500 people or 5,000 people. I'm going to make their night by going out there and being this quote-unquote superhero going to the ring or villain that's going to help ultimately make their night better, you know? So it's kind of a cool give and take there as well, like to really consider as well at that level.
Can we get the garbage man thing? Why did you want to be a garbage man?
I think it was the truck. It was cool. It was a cool truck.
I think
I'd always
everyone wanted to
drive
ride on
by.
the back of the truck.
Yeah.
That's why.
I definitely have this bucket list
they're allowed
with
to do
that
that.
on it. That's like the only thing really that's up there that needs to happen.
It was that and bus driver. I had this bus driver. His name was George. This is back in like the late 80s, early 90s. He would have this huge boombox that he would bring on the bus, and he would play music from it. I'm like, this guy's fucking cool as shit. I want to be a bus driver like this guy.
I remember when I was a kid, they had like it was in grade school, they had like a career day kind of thing, and you had to dress up as like what you wanted to be. And I mean, to this day, I still don't understand why I picked postman. But I wanted to be a postman.
I could see that.
And I literally thought, I think it was just because it was like, this is the easiest thing we can throw together and make a costume out of.
Yeah.
Because I can't think of any logical reason as a kid why I would have ever said postman. Like
When I was in kindergarten, they picked it for you. Like, I remember when we had to graduate kindergarten, we had to, like, go and, like, do this poem and, like, read it. But we didn't get to pick it. Because I remember mine was a beautician. And I was like, I never wanted to be a beautician. Like, I saw the video, and I was like, no, they gave you, like, what you were going to be.
Okay.
We didn't have any, like, free will, I guess, in kindergarten. I went to a Catholic school, the Holy Child, for kindergarten, so.
Well, I could do many podcasts about
yeah,
going
they
to
pretty
Catholic
much
school.
picked it for you.
Did you grow up with
thank
the CYC shows at all?
I went to like 2 or 3, but I was relatively young when those were happening. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, you were a little bit younger. Brittany, do you remember some of them? Don't
Yeah,
you?
I do. And we went to one, me and Bobby and a couple
Use this
other
device.
buddies went to one just a few years ago in Scranton. And it was like the most fun I've had in like forever.
Yeah, I remember back in, I think, 2015.
Oh, you did
Yeah.
the Sabu show.
It was awesome. I took
Yeah.
pictures. I think I gave you
Yes.
the pictures.
Big time
Yes,
wrestling,
we-
was that what it was?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
we were like out of hand though. Like we like we're getting into it. Like with the one wrestler, he was like yelling at us. I have pictures of him like yelling at us, and like Bobby Keller is like egg white ass, like yelling all this stuff to him because he was like this pale redhead guy. And we were I was like laughing the whole night. We were like high on like good clean fun. Like it was crazy.
And it's cool that still comes around sometimes because it was where the old CYC was. It's
Yeah.
Lackawanna College, I think
yeah,
owns it now.
Yeah.
There was another one not too long ago in music, wasn't there? Like last year.
There's actually a lot. Locally, Grand Slam Wrestling, who's going to be on
That's, I
Break the
think, what I was
Barrier
thinking
show.
of.
Yes.
They have a show every second Saturday in Old Forge. That's where we're running the show out of. And that's a lot of like local talent. You know, a lot of them actually used to be involved in like Cafe Metropolis and Home Base days.
Okay.
They used to be a part of that wrestling that happened there, and then they just kept going at it and decided like they wanted to do their own thing locally and keep that going. So they get a pretty decent, like every show, we do live streaming for them every month, and we typically put it through Facebook for free so people at home can watch. Like their audience grows every month, you know, like there's definitely fans in the area that would like to have that regular. It just takes some time for them to realize it's happening on such a consistent basis.
A lot of younger kids?
That's with everything. Like
not
as far
so
as the
much.
fans?
Yeah.
It's really scattered. I think that they, like, under a specific age, they allow kids in for free. It's a pretty family-friendly product overall, but it's edgy enough that, like, an older person like myself would...
Could have fun.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that one we went to, Sabu was like bleeding from the face.
Yeah, he's a wild man. And
Yeah.
they just had last month, they did a War Games match, or last week they did a War Games match, which is, they put a cage around the entire ring and had some barbed wire fencing and stuff
Yeah.
on it. And, like, some guy... Stevie Shields, who's also on Break the Barrier, doing my own plugs on this thing, but he was bleeding from his face in that match.
So I don't watch wrestling. Like in my free time, but like going to the match, like that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I won't really watch a baseball game if it's on TV. Like I'll put it
Right.
on,
It's the
Right.
experience
but
of
like
actually
it's
being
the
there.
experience and the excitement of being there. Like that's like
That's part of the too is like I did a podcast interview 2 days ago where somebody asked me, or like I kept drilling in the question of what makes a good independent wrestling show. And to an independent wrestling fan watching this, they'll probably say like, oh, it needs to have all these indie names on it, like talent. That's definitely one thing it needs. But to like somebody like Brittany, who isn't the common independent wrestling fan or has any clue, I almost say the F word like so many times. I don't know if that,
though.
I can.
It's
Okay.
We
Has no
said it.
clue about it.
Yeah.
It's like you have to understand that it's an event that's meant to be an experience for anyone.
Yep.
So like if you walk into an ambulance hall and it looks like an ambulance hall with a wrestling ring in the middle of it, it kind of like looks real hokey. But if like you see that they actually paid attention to some details, had some lighting involved in it, like had some backdrops around, had like we have these things we have all over the place. And like actually spent a little time in the production side of it, and also like the performers on the show as well, like look like performers. There's a
Right.
lot that goes into it that like might be missing and making it a good show. That Brittany would be like maybe wouldn't know the difference, but you know would just kind of be like this is like would frown on her for I went to it once, it's off the list, never again. I had I went with my friend, it was boring, whatever. But like engaging with the performers actually taking the time
That's
to say something
fun.
to Brittany,
yeah.
and Brittany going back at them and realizing now she's a part of the show, and now
Yeah.
everybody's getting on that wrestler.
Right.
You know, like that's what makes the experience like so much more entertaining.
You're engaged in it too.
Right.
Like it's not like you're just kind of like, oh, all right, I'm just like checking this out and
Right,
like watching
yeah.
what happens. Like you're chanting and like interacting with like the people. I think that's half the fun.
Right, like
and they're like come around, especially if like you're in the front, and like come around and like interact with you and like give you high fives or yell at you or whatever, you know, whatever their personality is.
right, and some performers just don't get that sometimes. They just like they're just going out there, gonna go do my moves, get my moves in, and then leave. But they
Yeah.
don't realize like you're performing to an audience of people that are here that paid money to see you and get involved with what you're doing. And that's like the cool thing about pro wrestling as an art form and in theater is there's no other form of entertainment where I'm stealing this from somebody. There's no other form of entertainment where somebody could literally land in your lap and it's a part of the show.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Well, I wouldn't say there's no other form of entertainment.
Well, yeah, okay. Music. Yeah.
Not music.
Strippers. Strippers.
See, I've never
Come on.
been to a strip club, so I don't.
Ever?
We're going
never
tonight. We're going. I was at an event last summer.
I think you said you're at a strip club last summer.
No, maybe.
Last week.
Never thought of the strip club argument, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just sent an
Put that
email
in your
after this.
back
Yeah.
But I was at a midget wrestling event.
Was that at the Leonard?
No, well, it was in Atlantic City. It was just at the Leonard, like late last year.
Yeah.
If the Leonard's watching, I'd really love to run these shows out of the Leonard Theater if you had a good internet connection. I don't know if you do, though. But that's a big problem if you don't have internet.
Yeah,
So forget it if you don't.
but that was a fun show, the
Yeah.
midget wrestling. And there's so much like oh, I feel bad for these people. Like these people are performers. They love it. They're getting paid to do
Right.
it. It's a performance, really, and it takes a lot of.
And if you're
It was the stripper thing offensive.
it's the midgets and the strippers.
Midget stripper,
Yeah.
yeah.
Really
Too
gone
far.
off the rail here.
They combine those too. There's midget strippers too.
Yeah.
But that was a fun event.
Well, that's the thing is like if people are reacting to what's happening, like the performers are having a great time.
Yeah.
It means that they
Love
did
it.
what they're supposed to be there to do.
Yeah.
You know. So.
But even outside, like, and going back to the how real stuff is. I mean, I know that old wrestlers. Is she dying?
I hope not.
But like they'll get hurt, like physically injured, and then get addicted to pain pills, like
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
you know people in America do, just regular Joe Schmo, and
And
they end up
it happens too with like even now, like you know, healthcare is a universal problem we have in the United States, but you have a guy who the night before rolled their ankle in a match, and then the next day they have to get over that and wrestle the next day. You know, it's like especially if it's like where you're trying to make a living. Like for an example, like again going back to the Young Bucks, like They wrestle Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday, one of them gets hurt. Well, Saturday and Sunday, they got to come up with a plan to keep doing those matches because they need to make money because this is their job, you know. They can't. There's no rest day there, you know. Like hopefully once Monday hits, they're good to go. But you know, that's stuff that people just don't take into consideration with it. Like again, it's like you're either open-minded or closed-minded to pro wrestling. If you're the person that says immediately, it's like it's fake.
Yeah.
It's like very clear. Like okay, well.
Well, I always knew it was fake. The storyline is fake. The theater behind it.
Sure.
But as far as them acting out certain things,
it's so much like again going back to like stomping your foot. Everybody can relate to that. They know what that was.
Right.
But now it's like, what are they doing now to do that same effect? They're not, because they're no longer stomping their foot. They realize like that's old news to wrestling fans.
Yeah.
So they have to reinvent themselves all the time to make you believe in what they're doing. Same as like a magician. You know, a magician's no longer doing like the
rabbit out of the hat.
You know, look at my thumb. You know, like I don't know that a magician ever did that, but like you know, it's like this is hokey as all hell.
Right,
you know,
yeah.
like no real magician that's performing in front of hundreds or thousands of people is doing that shit anymore.
Right.
You know, so. You just got to get with the times and continuously adapt. Yeah.
And I think it's easy too. Like any sport, it's easy for the armchair people to sit there and go, oh, you know, he's a bum, he sucks, whatever. You know, just like you see in any baseball or football game or whatever. It's like, well, you get up there and do that.
Right.
You wouldn't last 5 minutes just running back and forth the way that they do, or bouncing off the ropes.
Yeah.
Never mind, like actually fighting each other and flipping each other over and stuff like that. You wouldn't last 5 minutes.
I could tell you, like training for good 6 months, like a really basic pro wrestling move is the big back body drop, where somebody ducks down and the guy goes over the top of him, flip bumps to the ground onto the mat.
Yeah.
It took me such a long period of time to like perfect how to take that type of bump fall. I'd always fall on my ass or like onto my leg, like almost onto my feet, or like head dump myself. Like it's a challenge to protect yourself. And to go through that in training is like, holy shit, like some of the stuff is really easy to pick up on, but then other stuff, like to protect yourself is incredibly hard, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, it's probably similar in a way to like circus training. Like, you know, obviously those performers have to go to a school and whatnot. And I often like will watch like Barnum and Bailey type of circus where they have like a lot of the acrobatic performers. And I'm watching like some of the tumbles and rolls they do. Like we learned all that in pro wrestling school too. So like and like there's a school out in Hazleton called the Sanctuary.
Right.
They took a church and made it into a wrestling place. It's really cool.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
It's really cool.
It's like my child dream. Like when I used to go to church, I'd look around and I'm like, man, I can make this into a wrestling venue, you know, like or like a music venue or something, you know, like that was all that was going through my mind all the time at church. It's like that altar's that's the place for an entrance, you know. Like they have stunt academies that are similar to pro wrestling training now at this type. So like if you're a pro wrestler, like you can go and get your SAG licensing and, you know, get involved in like being a stunt double for things, you know, like there's some guys out in Hazleton that do that type of stuff. So it's pretty incredible, like what a pro wrestling background could do for you. Like I wouldn't have a marketing company currently if it wasn't for what I did with pro wrestling, like all the different things that I did and got my hands involved in learning how to network with specific people and how to do this and that, engaging audiences and getting involved in like realizing everybody has different personality types and whatnot. That definitely led to where I am now for sure. So
come back to us.
I was like, when's an appropriate time to sneak back in without being detected?
So in terms of Break the Barrier, so this was an event years ago by the same name, and you're using the name. This is obviously very different. So can you talk about why you chose to go with that name and what that event had in terms of significance?
Yeah, so long story short, my friend Adam and I created Powerbomb TV, being an independent wrestling streaming service. We want to help independent wrestlers, independent wrestling promotions, get more exposure, get more eyes on them. Our thought is bringing them all together into one network. It's bound to open up opportunities for, you know, somebody that subscribed looking for C4 wrestling in Canada. Well, now they're checking out Grand Slam Wrestling and seeing what their show's about. So, like, It's trying to educate fans on the alternative out there in independent wrestling. We've had some trouble getting that going because there are other streaming services similar to what we offer, and they have a lot of money, like tons of money, you know, like, and that's why I look at it as like we're independent wrestling fans. Like I used to wrestle, but there's no doubt I'm still an independent wrestling fan. Same, I'm sure Adam would feel the same way if he was, you know, here. We're indie wrestling fans first and foremost, so we want to do everything we can with the money we have to like better what they're doing, and it's been tough. You know, we have companies that do similar things to us that have lots of money. So like when we approach promoters, they're like, oh, well, you got to give us, you know, some cash every month or whatever. It's like, well, we don't have that. We're a startup company, you know. We'll give you this in exchange for it if you'll get involved with us. And they just, some of them got it and got involved with us real quick and early, and we'll forever be grateful to them. Some of them didn't and like kind of like moved away, and I don't blame them because there's other companies out there offering guaranteed money. Same thing like in the 90s, WCW, WWE. WCW was giving guaranteed contracts and money to people. WWE was giving money and opportunities to people to make a ton of money.
Right.
So we had to start thinking outside the box with like what we're trying to do and what we can do. And like me personally, I've always wanted to run my own wrestling show. Like since 2005. I'll never forget, like, Joe Sposto, who's going to be a commentator on the show here. He lives in Wilkes-Barre, too. I wanted to run wrestling shows in 2005, and we approached the Staircase in Pittston. And they gave me an awesome deal. It was like they wanted $2 per person that comes in the door. I was like, yes.
Done.
Yeah, that's fine. They don't want, like, a guarantee up front. Great.
Yeah.
Then it evolved into, we ended up bringing Chikara to the Staircase once a month, which is the lucha group that we work with out of Philadelphia, and they ran the Staircase until the Staircase closed. So it ended up not being my show entirely. You know, it ended up being Chikara's show with a couple guys that we ended up putting on the show with them. And it's always been kind of there in the back of my mind. I've approached the casino probably twice now in the last 5 years. I've just been trying to look for the perfect opportunity to do a show, and this popped up that it was like, maybe we try to get all the promotions that are on our streaming service together and make one super show with them so they can showcase what they do, and we do that as our first ever live stream through Powerbomb TV. We haven't done a live stream yet as Powerbomb TV. We've done Facebook live streams for free, but we haven't done one on our network. We're launching to Roku. We're launching to Apple TV for June 11th, and then we're available on mobile devices and on the web. We're basically like Netflix, you know, for independent wrestling, and we wanted to give the promotions that we work with that opportunity to be a part of that show. And Break the Barrier happened kind of like through a mutual thought between Adam and myself. Was like, you know, it was in the back of both of our minds that we wanted to call it Break the Barrier, but neither one of us really were like openly admitting it for a little bit, and we came to terms with it, and I became friends with Al Isaacs, who is actually the guy who put on the first Break the Barrier. So I reached out to him, and I was just like, we've been thinking about this. We don't really know for sure if we wanted to use it. Absolutely, go ahead and use it. The original show, you know, like looking back on it, is looked at as like a big deal to independent wrestling. Like Pro Wrestling Illustrated, which is a popular wrestling magazine that's in stores, like supermarkets and stuff, they ranked it as like one of the most influential independent wrestling shows ever.
And that was right in Philly.
It was in the ECW Arena, yeah.
Okay.
So when he gave us the green light to use it, I was pretty stoked about it because it just really fit to what we were trying to do. A lot of the promotions we work with are struggling to get to that next. They're trying to break barriers, and they're having a difficult time doing it. So we pretty much asked them, send us a match that represents your company, and that'll do you justice and show off what you do. And we'll give them the spotlight and treat every match like it's a main event. Like, they're out there to outperform the next person that goes out there. Do the best performance of the style you represent, whether it be comedy wrestling or hardcore wrestling, women's wrestling. What else on the show? We have a theatrical wrestling style, or lucha libre. We have luchadors coming in from Mexico City for the show. that haven't been here in the United States performing, and maybe once or twice, and we just last week confirmed Ken Bai, who is from Japan, wrestling for the Michinoku Pro promotion out there, who's coming here. Probably, I'm almost positive it's first or second time here in the United States ever, and he's performing in our main event. So it's very much like a mix of guys that independent wrestling fans would be familiar with, and then guys that they wouldn't be familiar with, that are all mixing together, and we're basically trying to give that spotlight to bring on a new generation of indie wrestling people that you might not have heard of before. In our area in particular, though, it's like an entire show of people they've never heard of before. So it's been a challenge locally to get this message out there. So that's another reason why I'm grateful that you were willing to do this with us.
Radio.
It's tough. I've been trying to figure out how to do radio and billboards that would attract somebody to go. It's like we'll talk about that later though.
Now, are you in charge of like getting these people to come here to the show? Like, is that what you're?
Yeah. So Adam and I have Adam handled a lot of like the international stuff. We have another partner named Dylan who has been really helpful with getting promotions signed up with us. So he has a lot of connections himself. So it's like the three of us, working together a bit to put together the show. But financially, it's all on me. It's like I'm paying these performers. The promotions made the mistake of thinking like they're going to have to pay to have this match on the show. It's like, no, this is our thank you for, being a part of what we're doing. We want to pay your performers and pay them, pretty decently to be a part of our show. So like, the whole show is not booked yet, if that's a question too. We have 4 matches still that we're trying to figure out how the hell to get them together, because it's like we have to organize a trip from Georgia still somehow.
Right.
So it's like,
I guess going off that, like, how do you all right, this guy from Japan, like, this might be his first or second time here. How does that process hey, like, do you Facebook him? Do you?
I believe.
How does that happen?
Yeah. So. Adam and I were going back and forth about like we need to like do some special things to make this show stand out. That was one of the top things we were talking about, is like we need some international talent on this show that wouldn't normally be here. Thankfully, like the wrestling world is so interesting in like the networking opportunities that are available. Like you meet one person, they know this person, this person, this person. They're very gracious to open those doors for you. Adam got into contact with a friend of his who opened that door to Japan. To start setting up the Kenbai booking. But it's all, every one of the performers had a different contact to like get them on the show, Some of my friends are personally on the show, like from when I wrestled. So like it was an easy like, hey, I'm doing a show, would you please be a part of it, and please have mercy on me as far as like the cost that you're going to charge me, because they've all, 5 years has gone by since I wrestled, and all of them have grown so much in that 5 years, and they're a little more costly than they were when I was wrestling, for $100, if that, it's each process is different. The luchador is totally different than the Japanese process. We hired, and on the other side is like, these luchadors coming up, they don't speak English,
right?
So like, how the hell am I supposed to talk to these guys? I'd be completely joking to you if I said I spoke Spanish, So, we have these talents coming up that, like, we need translators for. So, like, I've hired a guy that's coming and chauffeuring them for the weekend and translating like, letting them know, like, here's what they want from you, here's your match number, here's who's, who they want, what they want you to do, here's the rules that you should know, like, here's like when you're gonna go get food, or here's where you're staying, and blah blah blah. Like there's so much more going on in the back end that I knew going into it I was gonna have to go up against, but it's eaten up so much of my time, way more time than I expected. And obviously, like I'm also running a company aside from that like it probably. Everybody there would wish I didn't focus so much on wrestling, but this is like my selfish passion part.
Project.
Yeah, so
you need that.
Yeah, so
did you tell these guys that this is the pizza capital of the world that they're coming to?
So we did
That
have
alone.
that. Well, who posted about New York Post? Was that who it was that said like Old Forge is like?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean it goes back a long time. They weren't the ones who coined it, but they did. There was a recent article.
Yeah, there was a recent one. I shared it through all of Powerbomb's social accounts, and it did get a couple reactions. Like one of our commentators, Bryce Remsburg, who will be coming from Philadelphia to the event. I saw him go nuts over it, and then like another guy, Mike from Philly, also was posting about Old Forge pizza, and like people are believing the hype, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I don't really like Old Forge pizza all that much. I'm more
like
of a
it.
sweet
Get out.
sweet sauce guy.
Jerry's.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I grew up
But,
on Jerry's.
I had Old Forge pizza the other day, but it's you know,
It depends.
each their own. You know.
Yeah.
There's just so many pizza places
like it
there
all.
that
Yeah.
it's hard to argue that, you know.
Yeah, and some places that have been around a while, they've changed owners, so maybe they're not the same as they used to be growing up and things like that.
What was the pizza place that was like drunk on Facebook?
Oh.
Brownies.
What was that all
Brown-
about?
Oh
brownies.
God.
That was funny.
I didn't like really read any of it or get too into it, but
Well, long story short, there was
that shit cracks me up.
there was some local guys that put together a pizza documentary.
Oh,
that
they
we've talked about a few times on the site, and you know we'll probably have them on the show maybe when the movie's coming out. But it's a long process to put one of those together, and he was mad that he wasn't included.
Of
So
course,
he
everyone always feels so excluded.
Yeah. Well,
You can't please everybody.
That's the thing is there's a million pizza places in the area. It's so hard to narrow it down to the ones that you think are important,
Yeah.
or the ones that you know are at least a little different from each other, so you're not getting the same interview 20
Right.
times.
Yeah, you have to
So-
have a little variety. You can only pick one out of each pack, really.
I mean, and I think that they dodged a bullet by not having him on
Yeah,
there, 'cause if
I
he was
bet
going to go
he-
on some crazy rant.
It might have been awesome, though.
Yeah, it could have been. It could maybe it would have been.
He might have got his
oh, I
own
made him-
documentary after that.
Right.
Like, what's this guy's story?
They have him doing some commentary on
Yeah.
the wrestling there.
One thing that I haven't said this publicly yet, which I think is kind of cool that maybe people will hear this, is we have like a big part of the network that we have is our Lucha Libre connection. So like we do a lot of stuff with companies in Mexico, and we're trying to spotlight on some of the independent groups there, which is really cool because like for me, I was in Chikara for a majority of the time I was in independent wrestling, so I really love that style of wrestling. And like artistically, you know, I've hired a photographer to be there to just take headshots of these guys when they come in so I can frame them on the walls, you know, because they all have such beautiful masks. And like one wrestler that's on the show in particular, his name is Puma, and a new thing now in Lucha Libre is that they'll wear a mask, but they'll also paint their face underneath it. So like if you have open ports on your mask, so you can see your mouth and whatnot, they'll also design paintings on their face as well to like kind of accentuate the style that they're going with. And Puma's costume is just insane, like as far as like style wise. I'm gonna see if I have it.
Yeah, Gerard, if you could pull it up on the screen there.
Yeah, I'll get to that, but this will just be for us.
Yeah.
So like all that on his
That's
face
cool.
is all paint that he's put on there.
Oh,
it's
that's-
all
oh,
like
wow.
he put like
That's very
red
intricate.
and white into
Right.
their
It's almost
teeth
like a
and stuff.
Joker sort
Yeah.
That's cool.
mask on. That's really neat.
And yeah, so like that style of wrestling is really interesting to me, and like we want to do as much as we can to help put a showcase and spotlight on Lucha Libre. So one of the things we're doing is we've actually hired a Spanish commentary team that's flying in from Mexico to be part of our live stream and provide alternate commentary live.
Wow.
So we're logistically still trying to figure out how to make it work, but we've already
Right.
booked the flights. So it's like we have to figure out how to make it work. And
Right.
we've gotten pretty decent press in Mexico for this event in Old Forge, PA. So Medio Tiempo, which is probably one of the biggest, like it's basically Sports Illustrated of Mexico. They've covered us a handful of times already, and they're actually flying someone out here to cover the event, which is like it is pretty crazy in itself to think that this is happening in Old Forge.
Right.
and we have people from Mexico City booking flights to get out here to be a part of it. So
That's cool.
yeah.
This is why we encourage people to check out alternative sources like NEPA Scene, because you're not going to see something like this somewhere else, or you might after this broadcast.
Yeah, like I'll say, I'm a advocate for positivity in NEPA,
Yes.
But I'll say that it's been quite a struggle to like get local people interested in what we're doing here. Like, I immediately thought in my mind, other than the selfish reason of like I want to do this show in NEPA because I'm from NEPA, it'll make it a little easier for me production-wise to pull off some things. And my thought was, we've always been this convenient location from New York City and Philadelphia, like we're that merging ground, and that's kind of where musicians have always kind of we're that stop between the next stop, and it usually worked in our advantage that we would be able to pack a little space and whatnot. So I kind of went into that with the same mindset with wrestling, but man, it's not quite how I thought it would be. And I think that's the same with music is we're in this, it's not as easy as it used to be to get people out to shows,
Right.
because they can consume so much on the internet or, not bad-mouthing casino because I'd love to have shows at the casino, but the casino is like such a blockbuster. Like it's like you can get everything all in one spot.
Right.
So it's hard to compete with stuff like that because we're creatures that consume information so quickly now that if we can't get it all in one spot, it's like I'll go out once a year to do that one thing.
Yeah.
So like the old theory of hey, Northeastern Pennsylvania is probably a good place to be a musician. It doesn't hold up as much because we have such a hard time getting people out to shows now compared to when it was in the glory days of having opportunities all the time to get involved in a show or a big act coming in the area needs a couple supporting acts to go with it. And like that's not happening as much, and it's more so because it's so difficult to get people to commit. We're impulse generation of like, I have nothing to do, I guess I'll go out to that show that starts in 15 minutes, and like the promoter of that show is like shitting their pants like, I don't know if I'm gonna have anybody here.
Walk up.
So I had no upfront sales. Shit, I probably should pull somebody off this show, and then like it discourages them from booking other shows because it's like, I don't, me personally, I don't enjoy the stress that I'm up
The
against
risk.
right now. It's like it's tough, like doing it all yourself, and then you're absolutely risk rewarding, and you kind of have to go in the mindset I'm going to lose a shit ton of money, and then hopefully it works out that you don't,
Yeah.
So.
You hope that people, I mean, when the WWE was here in Wilkes-Barre just last year, they sold out the place. Now, granted, it was a big event because The Undertaker was coming back and doing a big thing.
Yep.
But wrestling is coming again next month
Right,
to
Raw's
the
gonna be
arena.
there.
Raw will be there. So they always get good turnouts to things like that. But it's like it's one of those like a guaranteed thing, just like Montage. It's hard to get people to go pay $5 to see a band they've never heard of at a small bar, but they'll pay $50 to see something at Montage that maybe they're not particularly like the biggest fan of, but they're like, oh, it's a guaranteed. I'm going to hear these songs that I know. I'm going to see these people that I know. It's a guarantee that I'm going to at least enjoy it or have a good time or whatever. Whereas something like this, it's like, oh, I don't know what it's going to be like. I'm afraid that I'm going to go and I'm not going to enjoy it. And I think people need to take more of those risks and say, hey, you know what, this is really cool that this is happening here. We need to give this a shot,
Right.
Because if this is successful, this could lead to more cool stuff like this.
Right, and then that's a good segue to we're taking a risk tonight because we're gonna give 2 tickets away on the NEPA Scene. If you leave a comment, I guess that's how we'll do this, right? If you leave a comment and you've never been to an independent wrestling show before, we're giving away 2 general admission tickets to the event. General admission tickets, honestly though, are like you're still right there. It's like general admission at like Mohegan Sun Arena might be upstairs or whatever. Like you're on the ground floor with another 200 people in that space, that crowded space. So it's very intimate.
Yeah.
So if I would love to give the tickets away to someone that's never been to an independent wrestling show before, because this would be the perfect example independent wrestling show to see as your first introduction, because there's so many different styles on the show. And even if you're not really a wrestling fan, kind of feel like you'll enjoy it just because of how over the top some of the stuff is. Like Old Wrestling, I brought up before. For their match in particular, they're based in the turn of the century. Their style of wrestling is all old-timey characters. So for their match, we had to come up with a way to live stream their match in black and white. And also, like, we're getting haystacks to put in the corners of their ring. And we have to have that coming up next. You know, like the old-timey radio voice has to be available for the match and stuff, just for that one match. And then it goes back to normal again. So like we have to brush all the hay out of the ring and stuff after the match is over.
Right.
Get the dip cups that are at the ring side out of the ring, you know. And then we'll have a normal ring announcer again. But like there's like wacky stuff like that. But then there's like our main event is 3 different countries are in the match. So we have Fly Warrior, who's relatively unknown to independent wrestling in the United States. He's 22 years old coming in here. And he's going to be one of the bigger names in Lucha Libre, and no doubt soon enough. Jigsaw, who's on and off friend of mine out of Brooklyn, New York. He's one of the best bases and one of the best wrestlers, most underrated guy independent wrestling right now in the United States. Chuck Taylor, who deserves everything he's getting right now as far as the attention he gets. He's an incredible base as well. And he's a Converse kind of, that's his name. Incredibly funny wrestler, but he's also incredible in the ring. And Ken Bai from Japan is also in that match. The 4 of them, it's interesting. Sometimes you look at a match where it's one-on-one, but we have 4 of them in the ring. So much shit can happen in and outside the ring all at the same time. And like having those types of 4 performers together, like I feel like everyone will be elevated from having a performance together. So it really will be interesting to, no matter what type of fan of wrestling you are, as long as you're willing to take a chance on something, really, it's more than what it is, you know?
So if you're that type of daring person, make sure you comment, and we'll pick somebody, during or after the show, depending on, when people comment.
Yeah. And when is the show?
Sunday, June 11th. 3 p.m. it starts. It'll probably go about 12 hours.
And where?
Old Forge, Pennsylvania. It's Maxon Drive. I don't know the number of that building, but
Well, I think it's 1 Maxim
One?
Drive. Yeah, if I'm not
Maxon
mistaken.
Drive.
Where exactly is that?
It's over by the Old Forge football field.
Okay.
It's like a back road by what used to be Jitty Joe's, R.I.P.
I'm like 5 minutes from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a show the night before too. GSW has a show the night before as well. So it's kind of a double header there too.
Nice.
Cool.
Well, I guess we'll go on because it's already after 8.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
So the other thing we wanted to talk about tonight, and we wanted to read your comments on this.
Sorry for popping. Sorry. Apologize.
Me too. Sorry for all the sniffles
I
this
don't know
whole
which
time.
one of you is worse.
It's like so bad.
That's why I didn't come here last week. They
We didn't even
Yeah,
know.
we
Like,
didn't
telling
even
you.
acknowledge the fact that I wasn't here. Like, fuck that guy. Like, thank God he's not here.
We're just gonna pretend he was never here.
Yeah, he was never part of this. Yeah, but I apologize for the audio.
So there's a rapper out of Brooklyn named Uncle Murda, and he is going to be performing this weekend at the Alibaba Liquor Lounge, which is in Wilkes-Barre. And it may have been a place you may have never heard of until local
You don't
media
need to hear
started
about
talking
it.
about it.
You don't ever need to go there for any reason ever.
There are
Pretty high.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm on Claritin, so.
I'm Claritin.
So, well, the patrons there might be high on something else. I don't know. From what I hear, So they're having this guy, and he has a few songs that were more maybe relevant a few years ago. Not necessarily that these problems have gone away, but when Ferguson and things were big topics, and everybody was talking about it, it was on the tip of everybody's tongue. He wrote kind of a cop killer sort of song, and talked about how you need to get revenge on those people who've taken down innocent black people across the country and things like that. So personally, I'm not a rap person, so I've never heard of him, so I can't say whether he's that relevant or not. But I don't think the masses really knew who this guy was.
No one
around here anyway.
From what I understand, he signed with 50 Cent's record label, G Unit. I had
Okay.
never heard of him.
So he is known, but maybe not necessarily here
Right.
until this past week. A
I'm
lot
sure
of the
he-
local newspapers, the local news station, did stories on him coming here and basically asked the cops for a reaction, and more or less they were obviously against it. You know, they don't like.
Well, they basically just gave him press. Like, it literally says in the article, like, at 9 p.m. Friday, May 19th. I was like, are you kidding me? Like,
right.
you're going to
Well,
try to, like, do this negative story and then, like, pretty much promote the
Well,
show, which
you
I
know,
just thought was so, like,
the first
so
time I
dumb.
saw the story, a friend of mine had shared it on Facebook and had said, "This is the longest story I've seen about any artist ever in a local newspaper."
I just think it was just,
It's just so long.
Are you listening
it's
to
so
him?
detailed.
just like, angry. I don't think anyone would
Yeah, I
have
don't think
even
that's
known the
right.
show was happening other than the people that were,
Other than the
that's
people
already
that
the
are
clientele.
regulars, that
Right.
yeah, exactly, that are going. So it's interesting because as a media guy, I have to look at like both sides of it and say, well, okay, you have to keep people informed of what's going on in the area, but you also have to do it in maybe a way that's comes off as a little less biased, because it seemed like the story right away was really condemning this guy and condemning this form of music and his message and everything else.
I
Just
think
the
if
way
he
it
was playing
written.
anywhere else, it wouldn't be a big deal. I think that, but plays specifically, people
I
view
think
with
it
a
was-
negative connotation. They're like,
Yes.
okay, not like people just don't think like that's like a nice reputable place. They think that that's trouble. There's cops outside every weekend, hired or not. It just looks like a place that's not going to be like, oh, I'm totally comfortable going there.
Right.
Like it's not. It doesn't. So I think if like let's say this guy was playing in Scranton at a venue in Scranton that has hip hop shows all the time, I don't think that it would generate this kind of negative attention.
I think it's also a
And
bit of a
if-
Wilkes-Barre thing.
Yeah, well, and online, like
Yes.
they're like milking the attention like
Yep.
really bad, like literally posting like every single thing anybody says about
Yeah, the
it.
venue seems to be
Like
eating
they're
it
all
up.
about it.
Right. They seem to be totally fine with courting, those.
Yeah.
Kinds of, and then as you should never do, you delve into the comment section on any of these
Yeah.
stories, and you see, the outright racism and hatred.
Yeah, like,
and
that's
all the
disheartening
nasty,
to
horrible
see.
things that come out.
Like someone had posted something like, oh, like put it all in there, lock the door, and like burn it down or something. Like I saw some stuff like that, which was
Sure.
like pretty harsh.
So-
But again, it's not a black or white thing. It's
That's what it turns into.
Right.
I get it, but I think it's more so just about the club itself.
Well, and
And-
that's the other thing is when you look at the other side of it, because so far we're kind of defending them, but on the other side you also have to wonder, like, this guy in these interviews that he's been eating up.
He likes the attention.
Well,
he wouldn't have the
he-
cops outside the club every
He's
weekend.
been talking about how, like, he's almost bragging, like, oh, we have cops here every weekend. We
Yeah.
have armed guards here every weekend. It's like, well, that says a lot about your clientele and the type of place that you're
He
running.
thinks that he's
If
running like a
you're
reputable
okay
place,
with
but
it,
it's
yeah,
like
if you're okay with that, because I've been to thousands of shows at this
I've been to
point.
hundreds of hip hop shows.
Yeah, across
alone.
northeastern
Nothing
Pennsylvania.
like that.
Never had a problem. Never had an issue. Never saw armed guards
No.
or anything like that, or needed off-duty cops.
Or
to
like
hang
aggressive
outside or
like
anything
searches. Like
that.
they like this happened to me personally. Like at the door there, it was like the first time I was there, and it was a woman who was searching me and like just totally like aggressive, and I was like, what? Like is this like what's going like what is going on here? Like
Right.
she was like, I don't even need to let you in with that bag. I'm like, who are you talking to? First of all, like what is going on here? And it was just like such an uncomfortable, uninviting, unwelcoming experience that I
Sure.
was like, I'll never go back here again. It's
John,
that
I
they
mean,
put
we've
that
all
up.
kind of been involved in like nightlife things,
Yeah.
for
in
years.
Wilkes-Barre for years.
John, I have a point to make to you though. I wanted you to promote Snip Stamp so badly on the Weekender. I only wanted to talk about was that damn bowling stuff. Like remember that when I was doing the bowling thing? And you were
Yeah.
like, let's talk about that. I was like, no, can we just like get a story about Snip Stamp in the paper? And you were just like, but this is the story we want to run. It's
that
like,
was
come
funny.
on,
That
shut
was
up.
cool.
But
That had legs.
This isn't new though. Like we're kind of talking like, oh, this is the first time a club's ever had to do pat downs before. Like
Right.
when I ran the Zoo nightclub at the Woodlands, like for the 6 months or whatever, like they were frisking everybody down.
There's a way to handle business and a way not to. I feel
Stir
like.
had a shooting, right?
It was Mulligan's,
and-
I think, at the time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
and and everybody was getting frisked down at Radano's, at Mulligan's, at Bottlenecks. Anywhere you went, you were getting like, or you were just getting turned away outright if you looked the wrong way.
Yeah.
You know, this like it's like
That pisses
there's a
people off,
clientele certainly for specific places, and that's great. They need an outlet of somewhere to go, in my opinion. The idea that they're taking that step and making it very public that they have police there available. The one side is hey, they're marketing that they have police there. It's also on the flip, it's great to know that they have police there, and because they are attracting a different audience than we're particularly going to go out to see.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen? There's a documentary on Netflix called Supermatch. It's about Alice Cooper's. Shep Gordon was the music manager for
Sure.
Alice Cooper, and I immediately, when I saw like this stuff happening, first of all, I went to I'm going to get on a tangent, City Hall meeting, and one of the people that was at that meeting talked about the overuse of the word gang in this area. All of the articles started off with suspected gang member. When I did a Google search trying to find anything about him being a gang member, we're just stereotyping this guy immediately.
Right.
And that word gang, I agree with that guy at the City Hall meeting. It needs to stop being used so much.
It's
the
almost
new
like
negative
a
word.
euphemism for something
Right,
else.
right, exactly. It needs
Yeah.
to stop. Like it's so racist of this area to say something like that about it.
It is, and I agree. And I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah.
But if you have a guy, this rapper, or whoever the fuck this guy is, talking about killing cops, fuck you, dude. Don't
Yeah.
fucking do that.
So-
you need to be held accountable for what you're doing.
No
Right,
one's held
but-
accountable
if
for
you're
their
gonna
actions.
talk about killing cops or killing this person
Or
killing that
rallying
way,
people.
or whatever, you're gonna get pushback. That's
Sure.
That's it.
But I'm
Yeah.
not addressing him as Mr. Murda. Like it's a stage name. It's a fake.
I get like
right, you know,
artistic
it's-
expression.
it's-
Like that kid kept saying like, "Oh, Bob Marley didn't shoot a sheriff." Way different time, way different form of expression, way different in a political sense, in an emotional sense, and in a different world where people aren't taking things so personally and emotional. It has nothing to do with Bob Marley not shooting a sheriff.
It's-
Like when he used, I was just like, "Does this kid know about what he's talking about? Like whatsoever?"
I think a closer analogy would be like, cop killer and
Yeah.
fuck the police and
Like we
things
get-
like that. Or
like
at least a little
NWA
bit
and, like,
closer,
yeah.
in that
you have
era.
to expect that. Like,
Which-
if you're gonna say that, you have to expect some kind of pushback.
And you know what I mean, I not being a rap guy, of course I'm biased in that sense, but I see a difference between someone like Alice Cooper, for example, who is a guy who on stage is cutting heads off and blood everywhere and stuff like that. The minute he's off stage, it's like, oh hey,
Oh, so-
I'm a dad
Yeah.
and I'm a
The,
golfer
right,
and things like
it's a
that.
different-
Whereas a lot of these guys are like, oh yeah, I'm a killer. I murder people. I sell drugs and everything. And then you look at their record, like in Mr. Murda's case, and he didn't murder anybody. He's never been charged with any of those kinds of things. But it's a persona that he would like to
Right.
to,
Right.
to
It's
push
more
on
than
people.
The Alice Cooper example though is based off of like him not selling tickets in London. And what happened is they shut down. They hired somebody to drive a truck into downtown London and break down where there was a giant poster image of Alice Cooper on it, completely naked with a snake covering him. All of the media jumped all over it that Alice Cooper is a Satanist. He is this horrible person.
Right.
They sold out that show the next day. So
Right.
all the media did, like Alibaba has every right in the world to say thank you to the media because their show's going to sell out. They got Philadelphia news out of that, New York news. Like
Yep.
the media has made the situation even
I don't
worse
understand why
because
they
now
would
they're
do
to
that.
come here to be a part of that
Right.
because they know that it's like 50 Cent commented on it. Like they've just made it even worse by being so blunt about
and
it.
maybe the wrong people will come just
right,
because,
just
like,
because they want to stir shit
let's
now. you know?
fuck like they're negative towards us. Fuck them.
Right.
Yeah.
Fuck the police.
Yeah,
Like, they
now
made
that
it so
now
bad,
they
you know?
gave like Wilkes-Barre now like we're representing something that's not tolerant or not accepting,
Right.
which I mean I think in some of the more rural areas that might be true, but not in the heart of the city. I definitely don't think that's true. But this story kind of I feel like encouraged the idea that we're not a tolerant people or an accepting people. We just don't want some guy coming in from out of town saying he's going to kill a bunch of fucking cops at a club that has cops outside of it every weekend. You know what I mean?
That's
like
fine.
there's red flag.
It's not gonna happen. But
Well, no,
still.
like in the businesses around there, like I know for a fact one business right on that block isn't opening that night, specifically because they just don't want to be around that kind of bullshit. Because that's what it is, bullshit. You want to rally people, you want to get people going, you want to get them upset or like to believe in your cause.
And that's where, like, as a media person, I have to go, okay, is this a story or did you just create the story?
Right.
It very much.
I think
is
it was like a
created.
created story.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
It's create a concern, and like honestly, it's only going to benefit Alibaba more
And
than
that
anything.
kid's gonna
yeah.
ride this wave of this
Well,
media
that's
attention for
Imagine
however
if they
long.
covered him like they do any other artist that comes through. I mean, like, you know, metal bands say a lot of things, and I'm a metal guy, so I can relate to that. You know, well, they'll say things on stage or they'll say things in music they don't do in real life. They don't even believe. I mean,
Right.
listen to Slayer. The stuff that they say,
It's
and
the
he
me-
gets off stage and he's like, "I'm a Christian. I don't know what you're talking about." Like,
Right,
that's
right.
all. That's all a show.
It's and like
Just
So-
with like our
so
show.
So they would cover him like that. You know, they would say, "Oh yeah, you know, he does these lyrics and whatever." But you know, the way that they covered this, it was much more
It's their-
controversy in big
Right.
letters.
Yeah,
yeah. They were
and
looking
then,
for that.
Oh, and here's what he does.
everything's
we
real.
did the
He's
show-
real. He's really going to come here and
We
kill
had-
cops. Nope.
Yeah.
Forget it. You
When,
know.
we
It's
were, when we were filming the
Yeah.
Barry, like I could understand how people could get that, like, oh, like they're making the area look bad. They're getting this criminal,
That's
like
right.
negative thing. Like it could have been WBRE took that story and turned it into a positive story by saying like, oh, look at this group of individuals that are making art in the community, you know, and not make it like, look at this controversial, like dark, heavy, you know, criminal drama that is representing the area. They didn't do that. They
Right.
could have very easily, but they didn't.
Yeah,
So I think it was just the choice of the media to be like, oh, we're gonna like
yeah.
talk shit on this guy. And
It's also a matter of like I was saying to Rich earlier was like, who's the one that originally came up with the idea to cover this story? Like they make it sound
think it
like
was
the
the
cops are
citizen's
shaking
voice.
in their boots. I don't think that like the cops
I don't
really
think
want
they're
that
really-
out there in
yeah.
any way.
Right,
That
yeah.
like they're in any way concerned.
Yeah,
so
like,
why
they're
would
on
like
edge.
I know a few cops. And they're like,
yeah, it's like it's
Yeah.
one of those things where it's the cops probably like whatever, it's another show because
Yeah.
the guy's getting paid to perform at a venue and he
Well-
just got everything he ever wanted because now he looks like the biggest badass in all of this state now
But
because
again,
our whole state's covered in it. Like
the
it's stupid.
four of us are probably
and
more,
we're talking about it.
more in touch than 90% of the people in this area with entertainment and downtown and NEPA and all that kind of shit. I didn't know about Uncle.
Oh,
no
sure,
one
I-
did until they
no, I
made
didn't.
a
I
story
know.
about it.
I'm,
I think
I'm as
no
in
clue.
tune as it gets, and
Right. I think-
never heard of this.
I
I
think-
mean,
I
there's
think-
so much shit down there, like that, like
Sure.
people have talked about. I'm like, I'm never going there. Like,
Well, yes, it's just not our scene.
it's
But
not,
it's like I mean,
I feel
the
like I
best-
could go to anywhere and have a good time and like fit in with any place. Anywhere I could talk to any person at any place and relate to them and enjoy myself. That club is not comfortable. Like it is not a warm, inviting, comfortable atmosphere. That's why I don't go there. It's not because because I like hip hop and I listen to rap music and I'm in that culture. I grew up in South Wilkes-Barre. That's my neighborhood. I went to Myers High School. Like it has nothing to do with any kind of like cultural difference. It's the business itself and the way it's ran. It's not like, you know what I mean? So like I'm an
Right.
example of like I'm from that
Yeah,
town.
so you're
I'm
open-minded to it, and you're
Right.
still like, no.
and I
no
won't go
thanks."
there just because of like it's a shithole.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a couple different ways to look at it. I mean, we asked for your comments earlier, so I'm going to read a couple. The first one I thought was perfect. Peter James says, "Who?" Plain and simple, and you know, I said that was our reaction. We didn't know who he was. Chris Zelenka says, "Screw him." So short and sweet, to the point.
They must be friends.
Yeah. Kate Elizabeth says, "This guy's named Uncle Murder. What do you expect him to have? Nice lyrics?" Ted Hebert says, "Look at all these delicate snowflakes who can't handle the big scary rapper and his big scary words without showing up in force and probably ruining the show." Rich Dries, I thought, had a good comment. He said, "I have to wonder if at least half the uproar is coming from the usual, it's music I don't like, so it must be bad attitude that unfortunately you see pervasively in the area. What's funny is everybody's alleged outrage reminds me of the time Lollapalooza hit Montage back in the 90s. WNEP had just opened up their new studio nearby, and the night before the concert, Nolan Johnson teased the 11 o'clock news kind of wild-eyed with the line, "Lollapalooza is coming. Can our area handle it?" I half expected them to start running footage of torch-bearing mobs from an old Frankenstein film. Lee Kinsinich says, "Some shithead farting into a microphone in a dive bar in the middle of nowhere. Nothing to see here, folks." Which Rich Dries said, "Thank you for illustrating my point." Mike DeSando says his publicity game is spot on, which you had said earlier. Matthew Williams says, don't let Dr. Death or whatever the fuck his name is play. End of story. Don't need trash like that in our town. James Gildia says, never heard of this guy, but I'm almost 100% certain some local venues had bands like Leftover Crack come through who speak similar kill cops rhetoric. Where was the media flipping out then? It's clear to me they're using this because of the current divisiveness nationally. There are musicians who really hate cops, but why does this become news? I'm not a rap fan, but I think making a big hoopla about this guy's beliefs on law enforcement isn't just absurd, it's contradictory. I guarantee you a few thousand people will listen to a song you wrote because of the controversy, and that those people would have never been exposed to otherwise. Instead of making these stupid clickbaity articles talking about the negative traits of a musician, I recommend WNEP write about the positive influence our local departments have if they want to help the cause. And finally, John Michael says, what about all these other rap artists who have come to the area? Lil Wayne sells out Montage every year, and his lyrics are no better than Uncle Murder's. That's a good point. And he said T.I. has been in this area, sold out the arena. Do we forget about his gun charges? No one makes a big deal about that. So all fair points, and definitely all walks of life. In terms of our live comments, we have a couple. Adam Lash says, I can't imagine why young black artists would write anti-law enforcement songs during a period when the headlines are filled with stories of white police officers shooting unarmed black men. Leslie Ann says...
A little sarcastic.
Yeah. Leslie Ann says, I'm a Christian. I don't know what you're talking about. LOL. So, interesting perspectives from all sides, and obviously it's up to you to make your own decision, but obviously we said, I think, our piece in terms of what we had to say.
Uncle Murda is an unknown that is now known in this area, and he'll sell out that show. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good for
It's
him.
like, I don't know if you guys follow basketball, but LeVar Ball, Lonzo Ball's dad, I'm a basketball fan. I had no idea who LeVar Ball was. I had no idea who Lonzo Ball was. Maybe I'm naive, but again, it's just immediate hype and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like now
I'm thinking about changing one of our wrestlers' teams' names to like something gang related, so I can get some real awesome
Also,
press from
like,
the local
Right?
media.
Cops
The
photos.
guy that
Yeah.
manages it, if you go to his Facebook, like it's just pictures of chicks throwing up blood signs.
Like I hate Old
Yeah.
Forge. I don't know. Like
Like what? Like,
The Old Forge's pizza is terrible. Let's talk about it, WNEP. Put me on the news. Old Forge, PA, June 11th.
We're going to body slam the pizza.
I spit that pizza out when I get
see,
it.
like, honestly,
I hate it.
like,
It's terrible.
We should have
Terrible.
him on the show.
Right.
why over there now?
Cause I don't want to interrupt.
But you are
I'm like-
interrupting.
I know.
You're off camera and we're talking to you.
Yeah, what is this?
I'm sorry.
You
She's
are-
in front of the green
you are-
screen pretending she's in the shots.
Yes.
Now.
You are completely interrupting.
Like, we should have, like people had, if they had approached it like, oh, like the Weekender does, or like you do, or
But what?
like if
I-
like there's something going on, like you cover it, and
Did?
like, you know.
Yeah, I've never heard of the former. I'm not sure.
I don't know what that is.
I think people just wanted to see something negative in it, so they did. I mean, there is a lot of negative in it. The guy's,
Well,
you know,
this
encouraging
is a ta-
violence.
This
You
is
know,
a town for negativity. So.
yeah.
Yes.
So it's hard to like,
Especially in an area that has been very politically divided over the last few years.
Right.
So I mean that may have played a role as well. I don't know.
I mean, granted, you get down, past Barton Irby's downtown Wilkes-Barre, it's a little sketchy,
Yeah, there's some rough areas,
but which is
for anybody.
yeah. it could-
Outsiders took
any-
way too long to close.
Yeah.
That used to be a great place, though.
Yeah,
You
I
could-
used to
you-
like going there.
You
with
could
the-
go to that
yeah.
that part of town before it got bad, and
Yeah.
then just kind of like crept.
They
Right.
it took a year and a half too long to fix
Yeah.
that situation.
It's not a race thing. It's not.
No, it
it's
was just-
it's a business, it's a professional thing.
It's
I think that's how people run
reality
their
of the
business.
situation of the people who live there, like or in that area. Like it's not black, it's not white. It's just
It's oppressed. It's oppression.
Yeah.
And
It's
the culture
unfortunate.
that grows from it.
very, very unfortunate.
Well, that's a subject for a whole other show.
Yeah.
We should wrap up. So thank you so much for tuning in tonight and leaving your comments and interacting with us. And we'll later announce who the winner of those tickets are. So if you haven't left a comment yet and you're watching this later, that's okay. Leave your comment and we'll definitely enter you in the drawing.
I was
so.
probably the winner though.
Yeah, I saw that.
I
You're
saw
not-
it too.
not
Yeah,
that
you
won.
were the first one, so I mean, you might just have to take it.
Might
Sorry,
have to.
losers.
So be sure to check out Break the Barrier, the Independent Wrestling Festival. It's coming to the GSW Arena in Old Forge on June 11th.
Yeah, and if you can't be there in person, you can watch from the comfort of your own home live. We'll be streaming live as it's happening.
Killing your sales.
Powerbomb.tv. I really don't care if I don't. I know I'll get enough people at the show. It's.
Oh, well.
I'd rather have the recurring revenue every month if they show up
Right.
on their
if they pay
TV
for it.
sets at home. Pay that $10 a month instead. That's cool.
Very smart. Businessman.
Cheaper than Netflix.
Yeah, cheaper than Netflix.
Is it?
Yeah, Netflix is more now. It's like 12 or
What?
Oh.
14. Yeah.
Holy shit!
More
I
reason.
gotta cancel that.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Well, I think you're grandfathered in, but if you're
Oh,
signing up new,
okay.
you know, yeah, you're
what a
paying.
brilliant fucking business that was. Holy
Right.
shit.
Well, thank you so much, and have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
See you guys.